So tonight we've got Lance Davisson, who's going to talk about tree canopy and walkability and all things City of Trees-esque. I think Tom is going to introduce him, and Tom, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Aileen. Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Tom Laws, Comprehensive Planning, and today with us is Lance Davisson, who is the owner and principal consultant from the Keystone Concept and also a member of the Treasure Valley Canopy Network. And really what we're going to do today is just kind of pick off with that education work session series that we did a few weeks back when Deanna Dupuis with our team came in and talked about neighborhood planning. And the next 2 weeks, you'll have myself and a few other transportation planners talking transportation. So I guess it was probably about a month ago, I attended the Idaho Walk Bike Alliance Transportation Conference, and Lance did a presentation there on the tree canopy and its relationship with walkability. And so we thought, that might be a fun way to bring him in here and present to all of you on the importance of trees within the city, tie it to our City of Trees challenge, and also just that connecting that link between land use decision making and trees and the tree canopy. And so with that, completely casual presentation, feel free to interrupt at any time, and I'll pass it off to Lance for his intro. Go for it, Lance.
Thank you very much, Tom. And thank you all for inviting me to talk with you a little bit this evening. It sounds like after this, you have your regular P&Z Commission meeting. So hopefully this will be light and a little more exciting than approving that slate of meeting notes that I took a look at. I wanted to really quick, like Tom said, this is going to be really informal. I do have a bit of a slide deck, and we're going to do a tour of a map that we created, but I do just want to have a conversation with you all, get to know you a little bit, talk about some unique things that we're doing, and learn more about what you're charged with your role in serving on the commission. So we have time to do really quick introductions. I'll just go around the room and ask your name and who you represent, and if there's anything else you'd like me to know. It looks like, who's in council chambers? Is that Meredith and someone?
Yeah, we and Commissioner Moore, Meredith Stead. I'm work for Boise Valley Economic Partnership. And go ahead, Commissioner Moore.
Jennifer Moore. I work for Cole Architects.
Great, thank you very much. How about Commissioner Mosier?
I'm just one of the current planners.
Oh, gotcha.
Not just a current planner, you are the current planner.
The current.
Thank you.
I know the name sounded familiar, so I can't see your face, David, but nice to meet you. How about Commissioner Finrock? Finrock.
Yeah, you had it almost right. It's hard. My name's Janelle Finrock, and I'm a paralegal for Parsons, Staley, and Latimer.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Gillespie. Milt Gillespie, my wife and I own a skincare company here in Boise, and I've been sitting on this commission for either 8 or 9 years, I forget.
Oh, wow. How long are your guys' terms?
Basically indefinitely until you earn your way off, and nice. My longevity speaks to my incompetence.
Oh, nice.
They're 4-year terms, though, generally.
So you're in the beginning of number 3. Good. Nice to meet you, sir.
Yeah, something like that.
How about Commissioner Squires? Did I say
Hi.
that right?
You did. Very good. Ashley Squires. I own a public affairs firm. I'm the executive director for the urban renewal agencies for both Meridian and Eagle.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. James Smith.
Good evening, sir. I'm the legal appendage for tonight's meeting, City Legal, on behalf of the Office of the City Attorney. We staff these meetings, but the commissioners and staff have got this handled. Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you very much. And you can make sure I keep in line. Nice to meet you. Commissioner Schaefer, looks like you're the co-chair.
Yeah. Hey, Lance. Yeah. Bob Schaefer. I'm a landscape architect with the Land Group out in Eagle.
Oh, nice. I
Mhm.
know a few of your partners there. Great company.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
Matt Cooper.
Lance, we've got a few people online that are support. So Matt Cooper is our IT support.
Right on. I got a lot of support today. I like it. Commissioner Brat Nober. Did I say that right?
That's correct. Jim Bratnover. I'm retired from HP. Enjoying retirement and working on the commission.
Nice. I like the guitars.
Thank you.
Commissioner Blanchard.
Hi, Lance. How are you? Chris Blanchard. This is my first term on the commission, and I work for a company called IndieDwell, which manufactures modular affordable housing.
Oh, yes. I've heard of you guys. You do great work. Great. Thank you, sir. And then we've got Celine and Karen, who I know, and Tom, who I know. So great. Thanks a lot. It's nice to know who's in the room. And I'm going to kick off here and share my screen. And like I said, both Tom and Karen will be chiming in here periodically. And we'll just talk a little bit about tree canopy and walkability. All right. Can everybody see that all right? So my name is Lance Davisson, and I am, I'll talk about myself in a minute. So what we'd like to do today is walk through a little bit of why we do what we do at the Treasure Valley Canopy Network, and also talk about the value of having a living infrastructure versus just a concrete jungle built infrastructure. I want to explore a little bit the value of public and private partnerships, which is a lot of the kind of work that we do. I want to talk about how you all are creating a city for all at the city of Boise, and how we together, both within the city, at your level in advising the city, and also those of us outside the city, can help plan for a resilient future. And I want to share a bit of our story and then also engage in conversation with all of you. So this is a picture of my son watching a large tree come down in the north end. So this tells quite a few stories about the north end, which planned for large trees, brings a lot of value to the area that we live. Also provides a lot of challenge and opportunity with when those trees need to come down or when they blow over onto a house. And so there's so many layers on top of, if you're going to plan a city for tree canopy, what that means. So we'll talk a little bit more about how that picture goes. A little bit more about myself. We've been in Boise for almost 10 years now. My company is called the Keystone Concept. I am the current coordinator and one of the co-founders of the Treasure Valley Canopy Network, which is a public-private partner organization here in the Treasure Valley that started around 2013. Before that, I worked in government for, 11 years? No, 14 years. And did a whole number of different things, from traditional forestry to commercial leasing to wildland firefighting. So I'm kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. And I like to navigate challenging waters. So a lot of what brought us to Idaho was whitewater rafting, which you can see from my background. The Treasure Valley Canopy Network is, like I said, a public-private partnership nonprofit organization. Our three tenets are collaborate, innovate, and sustain. So we're not what you'd consider a traditional tree nonprofit that a lot of cities around the country have, where we're gonna tie ourselves to a tree and say, don't cut that tree down, or do everything we can to campaign for a single tree. We focus on being a problem solver, helping bring solutions to the table when there are challenges with trees or when there are opportunities. And I think that's one important role that you all play in your position, is if you're going to plan a city that is going to have tree canopy as part of it, there's a lot of important ways that you need to look at setbacks from streets, enough space so that green space can truly function. So we've been working with the city for most of the time that we've been in existence. The city has been big supporters of ours. They were part of our original tree canopy assessment. And now a lot of the work we're doing is around looking at climate action. We're working with your climate division. In the middle there, you can see an urban heat map that we developed in partnership with Portland State University. And what is a lot of fun is the city of Boise really puts your money where your mouth is on building a city in the right way. And you're very collaborative. We love working with all kinds of different departments. And what we provide is that outside, sometimes more mobile, sometimes more opportunities to find outside funding and opportunity, and definitely ways to monetize opportunity in the private sector. So this is an example of that tree that's coming down in the north end, and then a table that was not made out of that tree, but a similar large tree with Heart of Timber, which is a local maker in town. So we love working with the city, all the way from mayor and council to people on the ground. This here on the right is the city forester, Mike Andrews, with a homeowner where this tree was being removed. And if you check out our new website, which will be released at the end of December, you'll be able to see some video content that we put around that. So we're just having a lot of fun developing partnerships with the City of Trees. But I will tell you, a lot of you have roots outside of the city of Boise. We do work some with Eagle, some with Meridian, a lot with Nampa. They're one of our supporters, and we are a resource for all of the Treasure Valley. And so I would encourage you, if you are in Meridian, if you want to be more active and involved, to let your staff know that we'd love to have them more involved. So now we take a bit of a lens at what it means to build a more resilient future in a city. I think it really opened up my eyes to the difference in how a city is designed when I was on a walkability tour with, I think it was Central District Health and some of the folks that do land use planning around. And we looked at different modes of transportation and different modes of pedestrian access this is in Star. And it was just fascinating to me how challenging it was to get around in a wheelchair, a walker, how much less safe it was when you have a street that is designed to run fast going through town. And so we often talk about how does living infrastructure communicate a more livable, walkable space. So the shade reduces urban heat, it improves air quality, it's been proven to have higher property values, and also more people are more likely to recreate downtown, go downtown to eat at restaurants. It also, if you build it in the right way, cleans water if you build functional landscapes. So in Boise, you'll notice that in downtown, they use what's called Silva-cell technology. It builds a larger space, actually processes stormwater. And I think we should challenge ourselves, if we're gonna build green space, we should build it to be functional, because it's not a cheap investment. And then the other part is just safety in the public right of way. So you can either go that route, or you can go the route that City of Boise has in some of the downtown core, where you build what were called green infrastructure. You have that more space for the larger trees. You process the stormwater as it goes through, and you have a more livable, walkable, bikeable place to live. Any questions before I take a look at our urban heat map tour here? No questions, everybody looks still awake. So raise your hand if you've seen our urban heat map before that we did with Portland State University. Ooh, we might have all seen a few, okay, good. So this is a partnership that we did with your climate division. We volunteered to do the study with Portland State University several years ago, and then the climate division saw the value in that, so we created this story map. So it has been shown through climate research that the City of Trees is actually heating up. And I think this is the best way to tell the story. Anytime we do a walking tour downtown, we always take a thermometer with us. And so this is at a home in the north end, in the sun, outside of the tree canopy. It's 170 degrees on the
Hey,
side.
Lance, just to interrupt really quick, we're not seeing the URL. We're still on your PowerPoint. So.
Oh, really? Oh, I know what happened. Thank you. Let me stop share. Is that better?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, so this is our map. So we'll walk through it quickly so we have time to chat. So this right here shows you the difference in the temperature of the sidewalk right next to the tree, but not under tree canopy, versus right under the tree canopy. That's a 30-degree difference. So that has significant impacts to energy conservation on that house in the summer, to off-gassing of fuel from your vehicle. There's just a really huge impact. So we try to communicate that to folks. And it has been shown that temperatures are actually increasing in Boise over time. 8 more days since 1940 of over 100-degree days. This was work we did with the Nature Conservancy. And so this study that we did looks at urban heat islands. So now we have a map that can communicate that to us. So you can see in this area out by those large parking lots near the mall are very hot. The areas where the cemetery has lots of trees and Morrison Park is much cooler. And so this is a way that any citizen, you all can get into this map and interact with it and learn about how the landscapes inform how your city grows. Did you want to talk about something in here, Tom, or?
Let's wait till the next map.
Okay. So I think Tom wanted to talk a little bit about this and what we look as far as the relationship between tree canopy and heat. So the north end, of course, has the highest tree canopy at over 30%, and the heat is much less. And then you've got these areas here. Barber Valley, of course, is brand new, not a lot of tree canopy yet, and much higher spikes of heat, and the heat holds higher throughout the night. Do you want to point out a few of these, Tom, that you know a little more about?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess just to step back slightly, this can kind of be a lot at first. So how I like to read this graphic is on the left side is the percent of tree canopy cover. And that's also tied with these little white dots and the size of those trees as it climbs across the map. On the bottom are our neighborhood associations. And then the right side is that temperature differential from that day in August in 2019. And I think what really hits home to me is when you look on that right side with the mature tree canopies that we're seeing in the where you'd expect. It's in the east end, it's in the north end. But then compare that to the left side of the map where we're really struggling with that tree canopy. It's our central bench with Liberty Park. It's our southwest, our southeast. That I think what hits home. So let's look at Liberty Park, for example. And this day was almost a 10-degree temperature shift from little less than 86 degrees to 96 degrees. 96 in Liberty Park to 86 over in the north end and east end. And I think what hits home here is that the decisions that we're making, whether it's a sidewalk waiver or if we're debating a attached sidewalk or a detached sidewalk, having those trees in the public right of way is just a huge environmental benefit, especially as the temperature is going to continue over time.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom.
Yep.
And again, feel free to chime in. So we talk about urban heat, how it affects our downtown, and then this is a map that is on our website where we brought this into an interactive map where you can turn on and off the tree canopy cover, the urban heat map, and you can even click on like downtown Boise, for example, and it will tell you the statistics. So 20% tree canopy. A lot of that is because this neighborhood includes the park along the river. It'd be much less if it wasn't for that. So it's a really good way for people to interact with the data and learn about how our land use affects where we live.
And Lance, maybe here, if you want to just zoom around a little bit or zoom out slightly, what I find interesting is if you were to remove the street network, you almost can see exactly where those big roads are. So if you look at like Fairview Avenue or even Chinden a little further north, those are streets that either don't have sidewalks or they're attached sidewalks, a lot of asphalt, and this heat map is really picking those up. As you head further west, I think Ustick becomes more visible, McMillan, 5 Mile and so forth, where, even without the street network, you're seeing that heat all because of, the lack of trees there in the right of way.
And it's been fun to have this data. It's informing the work we're doing with City of Trees Challenge. It's informing the climate work at the city. It's just really powerful data. So here we bring it down to, at the streetscape level, what the city is doing. So on North 8th Street, for example, you're taking and you're adding bike lanes right here, and you're adding tree canopy. And we're just seeing more and more of that throughout the city, where they're using the data to inform more walkable, bikeable neighborhoods. This is a cool story of the 11th and Bannock Urban Park, where this is a large urban park associated with this Raffinelli Nejas building. And a lot of those trees were paid for from mitigation funds that the city got from where trees had to be removed in a different place. So just a lot of really cool stories of how the city's doing the right thing and making a difference. And now let's hop over to the City of Trees Challenge in my presentation. So the City of Trees Challenge is a challenge that was started by Commissioner or Council President Clegg back in Arbor Day. She wants to do climate action locally where people can have an impact and make a difference. So I remember the day that she kind of announced it. I think it was on Boise Dev that she had this vision for planting a lot of trees. And to be honest, people were like, whoa, that seems great, but that's a lot of trees. What are we going to do? And I was actually in the middle of the meeting when Elaine called me to say, hey, we need your help, Canopy Networking. We know you've been doing this for a long time. We know that we need public-private partnerships to make this happen. Only about 25% of these trees will go on city land. The other 75% needs to go on private land. So it's a really good grassroots opportunity for us to work together with the city to implement climate action. And we're using equity data, we're using urban heat data. All these data layers that we're talking about are helping do this in the right way. We say plant the right tree in the right place for the right reason. And it's way more than just counting trees. We're focused on working with national partners, bringing in funding partners. It's a really exciting opportunity to be engaged with the city. So this final look is to talk about the blueprint that you all have to do the work that you do. What I'm observing from the outside in, and then also working a lot with the city, is you've always had very supportive leadership, but I think in some ways you have even more support than you ever have before. I see within the city just a lot more coming together, working together all as one team. I think it's an exciting time for you all to be serving on this commission. There's more and more cross-pollination and working together among city departments. We work with several different city departments, and having done this around the country, oftentimes those silos don't speak very well with each other. I can tell you, as we've gotten our hands dirty with the city, that more and more of that is happening, and it's really exciting. And I think the challenge in front of all of you with the decisions you make of when a developer develops, are you going to do detached sidewalks? Are you going to do sidewalks at all? Are you going to incorporate green space in or not? In my experience, in the short term, it's probably cheaper to not do that. But in the long term, what does that mean for your city? And so how can we budget in the right way to build our city to continue to thrive? Because while it's exciting that we're growing like we are, it can also be pretty scary. So I think you all have an amazing job to do. And I'm excited to engage with you in that and talk a little bit about how we can build a resilient future together for the city of Boise. And that's all I have, Tom, but I would love to have a little Q&A or discussion if we have time. I think we have 10 more minutes. Maybe we can just get rid of the share. Oh, I got a chat here. Somebody else.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Blanchard. Thank you, Lance. Go ahead, Commissioner Blanchard.
Oh, thank you. I guess a question for either staff or for Lance. Do we regularly update our forestry plan and then adopt it into Blueprint? And when was the last time that was done?
That's a great question. So that was done finished up at the end of 2015. It was adopted, I think, in April of 2016. And it's done every 10 years. And 12 years ago or whatever, before this newer one was done, it was done all in-house by staff. This time when they did it, they hired my company, who partnered with 3 other companies to do a very stakeholder-rich engagement. And so it is within Blueprint Boise. The city can probably tell you more about how they use it. But we mapped out a detailed, like every year, kind of what your goals are and what you're going to do to plan for the future. But that's a good question. It's once every 10 years, and we're currently in one that was finished in 2016. Does staff want to add anything to that?
Not on my end. Nope, that's spot on, Lance.
Great question, Chris. And you can, I can share with you the link if you want afterward.
Just real quick, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'll date myself, but I remember adopting the one back in 2005 when I was at the city. And so I just couldn't remember what the time frame was for doing those. So thanks, Lance.
Perfect, thank you. From Todd Stewart, why the NS trees?
I think that's north.
North-south trees versus east-west. Oh, that's an interesting observation. So you're saying from the map, you saw more trees running north-south than east-west?
I see him on as an attendee, so I'm not sure, Lance, that he's going to have the ability to participate in conversation.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. Did anybody else observe that?
Probably. I'll take a stab at it, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, please go ahead.
I think it's probably a lot of the larger arterial streets accessing downtown run that east-west direction. So I think there's less opportunity, or there has been historically less opportunity on those corridors to install trees. Whereas you look at the north-south routes, they're typically more residential or smaller collector type streets that have a better pedestrian connectivity and more opportunity for tree planting.
No sun and open to sunlight. Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting observation. And that's the fun thing. We've tried every bit of data we've collected. We've tried to get it in a format where people can explore it and learn about it. And obviously I just learned something there. The other thing you see, like the Harrison Boulevard's a good example. That has a large publicly maintained right-of-way and boulevard that was invested in over 100 years ago. So it's a different way to look at the way we plan and build our city than maybe we did 20 years ago. But it seems like that's swinging back a little bit, and that's kind of fun to see.
Hey, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Lance, great presentation. Appreciate all the input and information that you guys put together. You know, in my office, we talk a lot about pedestrian connectivity, the site as a system, you know, how it's a holistic approach that I think is the best way to go. I was just curious to see what kind of input you've received from folks. You talk about retrofitting like existing sites, right? And trying to bring more trees and more green space into those urban areas where you have a lot of pavement. I'm just kind of curious to see what kind of input you've gotten on that in your work.
That's a really good question. That's what I tell a lot of people is let's look at the whole picture. Let's be holistic about it. You don't want huge trees everywhere. And so let's plan the space correctly. And retrofitting is really hard. I think that's why it's important as we build out new that we do it in the right way in the beginning. Because if you come in later and try to do it, it's just, you know, the trees lifting the sidewalk. Well, often that's because there isn't enough space for the tree built into it. One thing that has been really fascinating with downtown is the city about 6 or 7 years ago decided it was really important to have larger trees that live for longer than 5 to 10 years downtown. So that Silvacell technology, which is, it's a suspended pavement system. And it's amazing if you walk around downtown and look at like the first ones they planted were on 6th Street, I think north of between Idaho and Bannock. And there's an area in there where you could see the trees that had that larger soil volume versus the ones that didn't. And that's really important for a public investment. The ones that didn't are kind of in a short-term coffin. They might live for 10 years and then they'll kind of wither away and die. The other ones are going to thrive, and you've received credit for your stormwater permit for that. You're having a cleaner Boise River. The trees can grow bigger and look nicer, kind of showing that your downtown is a little bit of a park. But you should, one of the reasons they don't put those in is near some of the old historic buildings downtown, there's basements. So we're not doing that near basements. Or if there's a concern with tree and sign conflicts, those kind of things. But I think you probably see it, Commissioner Schaefer, in your work, is you just need to be holistic about how you plan and think ahead, right? Like, that's why we don't campaign for multiple trees everywhere. Let's do it for the right reason. And that's also why we have an urban timber program. So when these big trees are coming down, how can we recycle that and create really cool products for our local industry, so that it just doesn't go to the landfill. So it's a whole life cycle. But I think if we're gonna plant trees, we should make sure there's enough space so they return the benefits, because 5-10 years, you know, that's not long enough to really give us the benefits that they could.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I think you nailed it when you said right tree, right place. We talk about that a lot every day too in my office, you know, that just because it's a tree doesn't mean you have to think through, right? If it's the right species, the right size for the application. So I think you guys are doing some great work, and you've got our support all the way, you know. So if there's anything we can do to assist and help educate folks, you know, we're all in.
Right. Well, thank you for the opportunity. Any other questions? I might have, 2 more minutes before you guys got to run. I really appreciate you guys inviting me in, and it's fun you're doing these kind of presentations throughout the year.
Thank you so much, Lance, and thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you again next week. Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. Good luck with your meeting.
Thanks, guys. All right. For the agenda this evening, we've got, I think, 2 things that we're planning to hear for tonight. So item A, PUD 18-40 on North 27th Street. It's a time extension. That's not a public hearing, so that should be on consent. Number 1, we will need to hear PUD 20-40 and sub SUB 20-54 on Ginger Creek. We are recommending approval, but the applicant is opposed to some conditions. We didn't have anyone sign up in advance though, so I don't think we'll have much public comment. Number 2, a rezone and conditional use permit on Danzy Drive, a rezone from A1 to M1D, and a conditional use permit for outdoor storage. We are recommending approval. There was some late correspondence in your packet. No one has signed up or provided any opposition, so we can try for consent. Number 3, CUP 20-36 on Cole Road. It's a CUP for a church. We are recommending approval. We haven't received any opposition, so we can try for consent. Number 4, CUP 20-44 on Targhee, a conditional use permit for outdoor storage. We are recommending approval. There was some late correspondence in your packet, but nothing in opposition, and no one has signed up in advance. We can try for consent on that one as well. Number 5, CUP 20-46 on Airport Way is a height exception for a parking garage at the airport. We are recommending approval. There's been no letters of opposition. No one signed up in advance, so we can try for consent. And number 6, SOS 20-33 on Leadville is a waiver to construct curb gutter and sidewalk improvements. We are recommending approval of that waiver to save some trees. Fancy enough after tonight's work session. We didn't receive any opposition or comments, so we can try for consent on that one as well. Last but not least, number 7 is a rezone and PUD at Franklin and Orchard. So the rezone is from A1 to PCD, and the PUD is for 205 multifamily units. We are recommending approval. We did receive some opposition. There's also some late correspondence received. We have one person signed up tonight, but I imagine there'll be a few others. So in summary, we will hear number 1 and number 7. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. I must talk really fast. You've got 9 minutes. So feel free to turn off your cameras, go stretch, bathroom break, and we'll see you here back at 6. Thanks all.
Cute, Milt.
Good thing you're here in chambers next week. Having too much fun at home. All right, everybody, it's 6 o'clock. Let's get this started. So good evening and welcome to the Boise City Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing. A few things to start out with for tonight's proceedings. Everyone from the public entering the hearing has been automatically muted and cannot speak. As the item you're interested in comes up for discussion, you'll be called upon and unmuted. There is a chat function in Zoom. This is not part of the record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. If the chat function isn't available to you, you can email zoninginfo@cityofboise.org with any technical issues. Our procedures for public hearings begin with a presentation from the planning team, then we'll go to the applicant and then the representative of the Registered Neighborhood Association, followed by questions from the commission. After that, we proceed to public testimony, starting with those who signed up online in advance, and then anyone else who raises their hand virtually. We do have a few in-person attendees tonight, so we'll start with in-person, then online sign-up sheet, and then anyone who raises their hands. If you are attending through your telephone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. Each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony. We are strict with this time as it is limited in code. Finally, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal, after which the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate and render a decision. Tonight's agenda and proceedings might have a bit of a delay as we all navigate through the hybrid technology. Please be courteous and kind while we venture through this format. Madam Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you. We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. We make final decisions on conditional use permits, variances, and appeals and recommendations to the city council on subdivisions, rezones, annexations, and code or comprehensive plan amendments. Any decision made tonight may be appealed to the city council provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given written or oral testimony at tonight's meeting. So that's why it's important to give your name and address when you testify tonight. We utilize a consent agenda. This means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report and if there's no public opposition, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order just detailed a few moments ago with staff, applicant, neighborhood association, and then the public testimony. Thank you all for attending tonight, and will the clerk please call the roll?
Squires,
Here.
Blanchard,
Here.
Moore,
Here.
Gillespie,
Here.
Infrock,
Here.
Bratnover,
Here.
Dead.
Oh, here. Did I say here for somebody else? Sorry. That is here.
Schaefer,
Here.
all present.
Okay, so without objection, we're going to place item A, this is PUD 18-40 for Trout Architects, onto the consent agenda. This is a time extension until January 14th, 2013 for the conditional use permit of a mixed use plan development. The next item for consideration of the consent agenda is item number 1. This is, oh wait, I'm sorry, skipping ahead. Item number 2, CAR 20-18 from Flex Space LLC at 2171 East Danzy Drive. This is a rezone from A1 to M1D DA, and also CUP 20-48 for a conditional use permit for outdoor storage. Is the applicant present? Please virtually, oh, there it is. Mr. Clark, are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report?
We are. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And is there anybody present tonight who would like to testify in opposition of this item? Please virtually raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we will place item 2 on the consent agenda. The next item for consideration is item number 3. This is CUP 20-36 for Zion Church at 2132 North Cole Road, a conditional use permit to operate a church in an existing building. Is the applicant present? Please virtually raise your hand. Hi, Zach. Are you in agreement with the terms and the conditions of the staff report?
Yes, I am.
Great. And is there anybody present tonight that would like to testify in opposition of this item? Is it in opposition? Sorry, we have somebody here in the chamber. No opposition. Okay. Seeing no opposition to this item we will place item 3 on the consent agenda. Okay, the next item for consideration is item number 4. This is CUP 20-44 for Rodney Evans and Partners, PLLC at 6900 West Hargey Street. It's a conditional use permit for outdoor storage. Is the applicant present? Please virtually raise your hand. Hi, Mr. Simple. Are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report?
Yes, we are.
Great. Okay. And is there anybody present that would like to speak in opposition of this item tonight? Okay, seeing none, item number 4 will be placed on the consent agenda. The next item for consideration is item number 5. This is CUP 20-46 from CSHQA at 3201 West Airport Way. This is a conditional use permit for a height exception to construct a parking garage. Is the applicant present? Great. And are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. And is there anybody present tonight that would like to speak in opposition of this item? Okay, seeing none, we're going to place item 5 on the consent agenda. The next item for consideration and last item is item number 6, SOS 20-33 Marks Land Surveying LLC at 1801 South Leadville Avenue. This is a waiver to the subdivision ordinance requirement to construct curb, gutter, and sidewalk. Is the applicant present?
Yes, we are.
Hi, Mr. Hatchen. Are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report?
We have reviewed and are in agreement with the staff report, yes.
Thank you. Is there anybody present tonight that would like to speak in opposition of this item? Okay, seeing none, we will place item 6 on the consent agenda and I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
I would like to propose to place item A, PUD 18-0040, item number 2, CAR 20-00018, and CUP 20-00048. Item number 3, CUP 20-00036. Item number 4, CUP 20-00044. Item number 5, CUP 20-00046. And item number 6, SOS 20-00033 on the consent agenda.
Second.
Madam Chairman.
Okay, hang on,
Madam
sorry.
Chairman.
I just have a note internally here. This is for item 3, the Zion Church. Yeah, okay, we're gonna actually pull item 3, CB 20-36 from the consent agenda. So sorry about that. Can we do a new?
Madam Chairman.
Commissioner Gillespie.
Can I suggest that we move to approve the consent agenda as well as place items on it?
Thank you. Yes. Would you like to make that motion, Mr.
Yes. Second.
Madam Chairman, just to get it on the record, I move that we approve the consent agenda consisting of A, 2, 4, 5, and 6.
Great. And we have a second from Commissioner Moore. Okay, sorry, I'm getting correspondence from all angles. Okay, so will the clerk please call the vote?
Squires,
Aye.
Blanchard,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Gillespie,
Aye.
Sinfrock,
Aye.
Ratnober,
Aye.
Stead,
Aye.
Schaefer.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, so then moving on, we're gonna start with item number 1. This is PUD 20-40, Mason and Associates. This is a deferred item from November 9th, 2020. Also SUB 20-54 at 12242 West Ginger Creek Drive. And we'll start with Mr. Moser.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Give me a moment while I share my screen. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 4 detached single-family homes on 0.85 acres located at 12242 Ginger Creek Drive in our R1B zone. This application includes a preliminary and final plat residential subdivision comprised of 4 buildable lots. As you can see, the area surrounding the site is developed with single-family residential neighborhoods and is adjacent to Cloverdale Road, which is an arterial. To give you an idea where the site is located, it's about halfway between McMillan and Ustick Road. I'll try to keep the project overview short, as the main discussion tonight will probably be on the applicant's waiver request not to connect the subdivision to Central Water or Suez Water. The subdivision plat contains 4 lots ranging in size from 14,000 to 7,000 square feet and will contain single-story detached single-family homes. The 4 lots are accessed from a common driveway. The existing house at the corner will be maintained. Through the PUD application, the applicant is requesting reduced lot sizes and widths, and the planning team supports these waivers due to the site's location along arterial roadway, and the site design will maintain like yard setbacks with the adjacent neighborhood. The site plan here shows the site's layout and the house building footprints and the landscaping. As you can see, the applicant is requesting reduced interior setbacks. The project will comply with all perimeter setbacks as per the R1B zone. In addition, they're requesting a waiver for a 15-foot landscape buffer along Cloverdale. Normally, a 30-foot is required along arterial roadways. These reduced interior setbacks and landscape buffer widths are supported by the planning team. The street frontage along Cloverdale is improved or was improved with a curb gutter and attached 7-foot wide sidewalks, and Ginger Creek will be improved with curb gutter and 5-foot sidewalks. In short, the PUD complies with all the required findings as per the development code. The main point of discussion tonight will be the applicant's waiver request not to connect to Suez Water and to use an on-site well. The development code requires subdivisions to connect to Central Water, and it states that when considering alternative provisions, such as the use of a well, the council or the city may require increases in minimum lot size and may oppose additional requirements. To the planning team, this means providing larger lot and lower density developments in a situation where this type of alternative provision is being requested. The applicant's reason to request the waiver is essentially the cost of extending the water line down Cloverdale and Ginger Creek right away. And ACHD just rebuilt Cloverdale. As such, there's a no-cut moratorium in place, and the applicant cannot install the improvements or actually cut into the right-of-way to install the improvements until 2025. As such, they'll have to ask specific approval from ACHD to do so. This plan shows you kind of where the existing water lines are. So they come down Cloverdale and stop about 300 feet from the intersection. And it does the same about the other side. So this is kind of a gap where there is no water present within that roadway or right of way. As you can see, the water does not go down Ginger Creek, and the subdivision to the west of this is these houses are supplied by wells. The red dots indicate the existing fire hydrants within the area. The nearest fire hydrant is up at Etna, which is it's a little over 600 feet from the site. Now, The planning team does not support the waiver request for the following reasons. First, it is difficult for the city to ensure that the well will comply with all the other agency requirements from the state. And in particular, the fire department required a fire hydrant within 600 feet of all the buildings. Although they did note that an alternative to this, and to a fire hydrant, would be to fire sprinkler each house and then have each house dedicate a 300-gallon water tank that would be constantly full that the sprinkler system be connected into. This would be the alternative for a fire hydrant. Also, the planning team had concern that the well would not be able to supply the quality and the quantity of water required over the lifetime of the subdivision. The applicant will note that the houses adjacent to the west along Ginger Creek are all supplied by well, which is true, but I would point out that this subdivision was platted with approximately 1 acre size lots with a house on each acre, or on each lot, acre lot, whereas the subject property is 0.5 acres and will contain 4 houses with a density of 4.7 units per acre. Also, the subdivision to the west was constructed in 1976 and was not within the city limits at the time. And in 1976 was surrounded with a lot more open space and farmland at that time, whereas the property is now within the city limits along Cloverdale, an arterial roadway, and the area has been primarily developed with residential neighborhoods. So in conclusion, the planning team recommends approval of the PUD and finds that the PUD meets all the required findings. And the planning recommends approval of the PUD and the subdivision as with the requirement they connect to Suez water. Commission renders final decision on the PUD and makes recommendation to the subdivision with City Council or to City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moser. We'll next move to hear from the applicant, and we'll start with 10 minutes. I think you are still muted.
Thank you, David Moser. Thank you, Madam and Chair and Councilman. My name is Chuang Ha. Thank you for the opportunity for me here to present the planned unit development for Via Moore East State. And like David was mentioned, it is a community of 4 single-family homes. May I present my PowerPoint slide on here?
Yes.
How do I share that on here?
You should be able to. You should have a share screen button at the bottom of your
Okay.
application there.
Could you see my screen now?
We cannot see it yet.
If you wish, I could share it. I have the PowerPoint.
Okay, please, David. Thank you.
Okay, just let me know when to change slides.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, so that is So Via Moore planned unit development is a community of 4 single-family homes. It includes the existing home and construction of 3 new homes on the site. The site access provided by a 20-feet common drive, which have been approved by Boise City Fire Department. Cup and gutter and attached fire sidewalk will be installed along Ginger Creek Drive, built into the site. The street frontage along Cloverdale have been recently improved with cup and gutter and 7 feet attached sidewalk. 2 parking garage space will provide for each new single-family home, and then 2 tandem parking space will be provided for the existing home. The required off-street parking will be offset with the 20 feet from the edge of the common drive within the parking of the drive upon this community. So David, could you go to the next slide? So this is the site plan for Via Moore community. As you can see here, we have the existing house here at the corner, and then we have 3 new homes going to be built here on the site. And our primary resident will be on lot number 1. And then we have a 2 new home on lot number 2 and 3, and then keep the existing home. So we are more really, it is our dream of building our primary residence and also providing housing on lot 2, 3, and 4 for people in our community. We are respectful of all of our neighbors surrounding us, and then we want to providing a good housing for our family, also for community. About the water connection, could you please go to the next slide? Here is a picture of the primary residence on lot number 1. And here's a back picture of the home. And here's a picture of the house on number 2. And here's a picture of lot number 3. And I want to talk about a little bit about the community well system. So the reason that I asked for the community well system to replacement for the connecting to sweat water, because of the difficulty, as David was mentioned earlier, that we have to connecting to the water main, which is about 300 feet up in north of Cloverdale. And then we had to run another 300 feet along Ginger Creek to get into our end of our property line. And then because of Cloverdale was a new road that should development last year, we had to be cut at least 20 feet wide. And there's also no cut until April 2025. And then there's also 2 elevation crossing requirement that we had to crossing to get 600 feet of water main tied to our property. There was a little story behind this. Back when HCHD was developing the Cloverdale Road, I have been in contact with HCHD from day 1 in January 2019, and been asking HCHD to also sway water to locate the water main location so that way we can connect to the water. And I've been told that they don't know exactly where the water main is, and they don't know where the water main belongs to. So I call Sewer Water, and then I also called them multiple times, and they said I had to call Capital Water. I called Capital Water several times, and they said that's not belong to them. So back in for almost 6 months, and then one of the subcontractors from HHD told me that the water main is right in the middle of the street. And that is when they already done with half of the Cloverdale Road. So I had to send out a master email to everyone in HCHD, and one of the HCHD managers get on board, and then also with Sweat Water as well get on board and say, oh, that belongs to Sweat Water. And at that point, it is too late to connecting the water to my house because the road is already done. So that's the difficulty why we asking for a plea to help us to get develop a community well for our community here. As you can see, I have been contacting Department of Water Resource, Department of Environment Quality Control, and asking them for the specific location of this community well. And they both agencies are agree and allow for the community well to be constructed at this site. And there's plenty of water at my property. And you can see all the well in Ginger Creek neighborhood have been existing for 40 plus years. And then operate with a facility water at the 31 feet deep. And there's plenty of water when you only need to go down to 31 feet deep. All of our neighbor in Ginger Creek are on well. And some of them even have big swimming pool, fill up the swimming pool from well water. And there's no problem with operation. And nobody have any significantly concern about the water flow here for many years. So that was, I was very hopeful that we can do the well here. In terms of the fire concern, I reaching out to the fire department and able to have the fire sprinkler system that I contacted one of the local company here that do a fire sprinkler system. They've been contacting with the Fire Marshal Jerry to see if we can put in an accurate fire sprinkler system to help prevent fire if it ever happens. So with that in mind, you know, the well, community well will provide enough water to serve for a single family home. And on top of that, the sprinkler system will satisfy the fire requirement. So I have Mark from Philip Well Drilling, also Alicia from Tor Fire Sprinkler System, and then my civil engineer Will Mason here with me virtually to help answer any questions that may arise. So that is all I want to ask for, please, to support the community well. In closing, I just want to say that Via More is our dream of building our primary resident on lot number 1 and provide resident for our people in our community on lot number 3, 2, and 4. We are respectful the surrounding neighborhood and believe that this proposal will blend well with the surrounding area, as well as improving the site appearance and enable the overall appearance with the community with a combination of qualified quality custom home and attaching design. Via More will be an asset to the neighborhood. So we sincerely request approval for Via More planned unit development with the condition of approving for the community well to serving for a family home. We sincerely appreciate your time and your condition of this application. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just for the record, would you mind please stating your name and address? I don't think we got that at the beginning.
Yes, my name is Chuang Ha, and my address is 4052 East Chandler Street, Meridian, Idaho 83646. This is actually my parent address. We currently live in a 1-bedroom in my parents' home with my wife and 2 kids. So we are really hopeful that we can build a house at this location so that we can have a place to stay for our family.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ha. We'll next move to, is there anybody present representing the neighborhood association? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to questions from the commission for the applicant or for staff.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Squires.
This question is for the applicant, and Mr. Mosier can chime in as well. I'm just curious, how hard have you fought against the no-cut moratorium in Cloverdale? The reason why I'm asking is I do know that these are allowed from time to time. So I wonder if this condition has been appealed extensively or exhaustively before making this request of this commission.
Thank you for the question. Yes, I've been talking with ACHD multiple times from the beginning until I find out where the water main is. At that point, I've been contacting with the supervisor from ACHD to asking for the cut moratorium. And all they told me that I had to submit the application and waiting for approval. But then there's strong saying that there's no cut into Cloverdale since the road just completed. And email, calling so many times. I even reaching out to one of the gentlemen that working at ACHD for a long time to my friend's dad basically, and asking for the approval. But all they can do is recommend for the community to approve for that. And I talked to Justin Blessel, which is the ACHD supervisor, and he said, in this case, you know, we have history. They hear that you've been pushing around back and forth to connect to the water. Now with this, it has to go up to the committee to approve that. And at this point, there's no guarantee for that.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
A follow-up question to Commissioner Squires. So for this approval for the no-cut moratorium, and this is probably a question for staff, how difficult is it to kind of go about obtaining approval to kind of cut into the road and I guess get a waiver for the no-cut moratorium for something like that? Is this a really difficult thing, or is it kind of standard when requested and under circumstances like this?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I don't know the specific requirements that ACHD reviews these applications with, but it is something they need to specifically request, and it goes before a special commission, I think, that the Howey District reviews. So it is an application process that they would have to review. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't know specifically what criteria the highway district uses when reviewing these applications.
Madam Chairman.
Commissioner Gillespie.
So David, this is a historical question. It's my understanding that one of the original drivers of a lot of the annexation in the west and the southwest of the city was that a lot of the subdivisions, the septic systems were failing and contaminating the wells. And that the extension of both the sewer and the city water was, in a sense, the way that the annexation occurred for a substantial part of the western and southwestern part of the city, that where all those subdivisions were approved initially by the county in the 60s and 70s. Is that a correct sort of general understanding of what's happening or has happened out in that area?
I can't speak to that. I don't know that specific knowledge. I know that area, including the subject property, was annexed in 1999. But as to why we annexed it, or if it was specifically because of those standards or those reasons, I couldn't say. It might be, that might be true in the Southwest, where we actually did extend sewer line out beyond the city limits to address that. But I honestly don't know the reasoning for our annexation.
Madam Chairman.
Commissioner Gillespie.
So follow up with David. So in your staff report, you talked about the difficulty of monitoring the water quality and the water availability. How is that done from a procedural point of view? Is that up to the state or the well owner, or how does that work?
From the state perspective, Madam Chair, members of the commission, from the state perspective, DEQ would usually regulate water quality systems or community well systems if they reach a certain threshold, and I think it's 15 houses or more than 25 people. So if you reach that threshold, you have a well supplying it more than that number of houses, then you would have to meet their standards for water quality testing, annual testing, things of that nature, and I would assume make sure that it complies with Safe Drinking Water Act standards. But this system is only 4 houses, so it's actually too small to monitor it, or to monitor or require that type of testing under DEQ. So it would be really up to the applicant or the property owners to test the well on their own to make sure it's clean. That is a concern, though, being that, I mean, I'm not a geologist per se, so I couldn't speak to how the quality of that water will maintain over time, especially now that it's urbanized, but it is a concern I have.
Madam Chairman.
Commissioner Gillespie.
So David, do you know if this property and the adjacent properties are on city sewer, or are they running on septic systems? Particularly the Ginger Heights subdivision to the west that already has its own well.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I believe they are connected to city sewer.
Does the applicant or his advisors know the answer to that question?
I could look it up here momentarily, but maybe if the applicant might know, or maybe the engineer for the applicant might be able to answer that.
May I please?
Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Ha.
Yes, there's a good question about the quality of the water. I did reach out to DEQ and both phone call and email, and asking for the water system to be quantity for the drinking water. And they both, as David said, that there's no specific requirement from them, but I did also talking with my well drilling to make sure that we have a system in play to testing the water quality and testing it throughout the year. And I do, in the code that the drilling company provides, they do have a system that do that, and they willing to drill the well deep and have screening and all of the management to make sure that the water is good. And then for the sewer, we're going to have a sewer connection to our community. So,
Madam, if I may, Madam Chair, members of the commission, the sewer system does not. A majority of Ginger Creek subdivision to the west is actually on septic. I stand corrected. It's in front of the property, the sewer line, but along Ginger Creek, but it does not extend any further west than that.
Thank you.
And one more thing also for the well location, I did talk with the DEQ about the well location. So we put the well location at the corner of Ginger Creek and Cloverdale. So that will be far away from any of the septic that exit into the neighbor. And that way there will not be anything that within that ratio. So then the water quality will be good.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Bratnober.
question for staff. So David, if I understand things correctly, the alternative that in your report was that the houses all have sprinkling systems for fire and a 300-gallon tank on site on each property. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, as a commission, that is correct. That is the requirement that the fire department said would satisfy their need in lieu of a fire hydrant.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Bratnober.
So what I heard Mr. Trong say was that they are going to they're willing to put sprinklers in as requested. So is the only gap the lack of those 300-gallon tanks?
I guess, yeah, I guess that would be the case. The 300-gallon tank is that they want to make sure the fire sprinkler system can flow for 30 gallons a minute for 10 minutes. And so that was the assurance that the fire department wanted.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Bratnober.
So Mr. Trong, are you opposed to installing a 300-gallon tank on each of those lots? Because it sounds like you're halfway there with the sprinklers.
No, sir. I'm totally agree with this fire sprinkler system, and I actually already had contact with Torrent Fire Sprinkler System Company, and I have Alicia reaching out, which is the design manager for Torrent Fire Sprinkler System, reach out to Jerry Fire Marshal, and we already have a discussion and an email confirmation that will provide the home fire hydrant to meet up the standard for the fire sprinkler system for each home. And it will produce enough water to certify if fire ever happen. And the system also doesn't require the well water to provide all at once because it will store it in the tank. And in that way, it will provide enough water to certify if any fire ever happen. So I agree with that, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Madam Chair?
Commissioner Bratnober.
So am I correct in observing that there is the mitigation that was put forth by staff is acceptable to the applicant? And I guess this question is going to both of you, David and Mr. Twong.
If I may, Madam Chair, members of the commission, as for fire department, if they are satisfied with that condition, that is fine. I still am not recommending. I'm still recommending approval or recommending that they connect to Suez, just because I don't know if the well. I just don't know if the well can supply the water that's necessary over the life of the subdivision.
Even with the tanks.
Even just the general supply of itself and the quality for drinking purposes.
Mr. Trong?
Yes, may I say, I spoke to it. I do see the point he's looking for assurance for long term, but I want to say strongly, every neighborhood house in Ginger Creek are on well water for 40+ years, and the water quality there is actually better because of how much water we have in that location. And people will live there for long term and don't see there's any issue with the well water. I have multiple time meeting with the neighbor, and they both strongly recommend us to put in a well system because every house on Ginger Creek are on well. And I have confirmed from the well drilling company to support that, and I hope that I do see the safety in the long run, but as you can see, people in the neighborhood already have existing well for 40 plus years. So the quality of the water is good in this location.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, David and Mr. Trong. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Thanks, Jim. I was heading in that direction with this question, so I'm going to piggyback on your string there. This question's for David. So David, I've read through the code regarding the water supply, and if you're proposing an alternate source for water, the code states the council can add conditions to the development, right? Require larger lot sizes, et cetera, et cetera. So the water quality aside, I guess to put you on the spot a little bit, are you comfortable in this configuration with sort of some reduced interior setbacks? Are we comfortable in that with this configuration if this body and ultimately council decides that the wells and the tanks will work for fire suppression? Does that make sense?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I mean, I think I understand where you're coming from. It's my only concern is by not connecting to the central water. It's just it's a fairly high density site for one well, and I just to supply. I'm sure I don't doubt that there's probably plenty of water down there right now. I just can't guarantee what it'll be in 20 or 30 years from now. And then, and I don't know how deep the well is or what the geology is, if there's some confining unit or something that would prevent surface contamination from reaching the aquifer, or if it's fairly or if they're pulling from the shallow aquifer and then there's a threat there. I don't know what, how deep the well is or what those standards are, what's happening. So I'm just playing it safe and thinking that they should connect to to central water. Just given the density, I feel a little uncomfortable because serving this all off one well. Like it says, the code says that you can add or you can increase lot sizes if, for alternative, they're doing probably just the opposite of that. They're increasing the density, which we want, but it's not really what I'd like to see with a well. Although, like I said, I'm not a geologist.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
And I just want to circle back to the moratorium. So this is a question for staff, and it's probably more of a procedural question. So you go in front of ACHD, put in the application, and are denied the ability to cut into their road to gain your access. Is there any recourse that the applicant could take to gain their water? Could they come back to the commission having taken those measures and reapply for well access and things like that?
I suppose they could. I guess they could come back with another subdivision and request different conditions, or.
Madam Chairman.
Commissioner Gillespie.
Yeah, David, couldn't they just request a modification to either the PUD,
yes,
the subdivision? So it would be it might even be a minor modification under the code that could be handled at an administrative level if they came back with a denial from HCHD for the cut.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, that is correct, but the condition would have to be worded as such. If the condition read that you shall connect, then they would have to actually come back to the commission to change that. So the commission have to be worded in a way that it could be handled staff level, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Madam Chair, question for staff.
Commissioner Blanchard.
Actually, this is for legal staff, and this might not, we might not even have the answer since it's not our agency, but how is this legally defensible at ACHD? I mean, this is either, bordering on a virtual taking or a down zoning of someone's property. I mean, it's 0% defensible for ACHD to say, we didn't know where the water line was. That's just, there's no way they could have completed the work on Cloverdale without knowing that. So this seems utterly bizarre to me that we're sitting here and ACHD is saying what is done is done. Too bad.
Commissioner Blanchard and Madam Chair, if the references to the ACHD moratorium, and I can't speak precisely to ACHD's processes, but at a very low resolution, I understand that there are either exceptions or, for lack of a better phrase, it's maybe just a matter of money and redoing the pavement to different standards is what I would suspect. So, but again, can't answer to the ACHD processes, and I think that's why the city needs to do its best to require our piece. And then if the applicant runs into a brick wall or has trouble on the ACHD side, then they need to work with those remedies, whatever they are. But the commission shouldn't consider the ACHD processes in the sense that it dictates a result to you one way or another, like you're legally bound to rule one way or the other here. This is the city's subdivision ordinance.
Thank you, James.
Okay, so we don't have anybody on the sign-up sheet for this item, but is there anybody present here? Great, we do have people present here, so I'm going to let them start first. But if you're online and interested in testifying on this item, please virtually raise your hand so that we can queue you up. And if one or both of you want to come up, you'll have 3 minutes. Please start with your name and address.
My name is Cindy Reese. I live at 12285 West Ginger Creek Drive. So I'm across the street from this property. First off, we'd say, we've met with Mr. Trong on several occasions, but we do have some concerns about it. He's a really nice man. We would love to have him as a neighbor. But what I brought with me was actually pictures of our neighborhood, because when you look at those plats from the top, it doesn't really tell the whole story. First of all, the current property has a home existing on it that's only about 800 or 900 square feet. In his proposal, he said to us at the neighborhood meeting that there'd be some improvements to it, but it's a very old home. It actually was hit by a car about a year ago before they widened Ginger Creek, and the whole front of it was smashed in, and that was rebuilt. A car just went off of Cloverdale out of control. This same property about 8 years ago was denied a similar application, and that's when the property was over an acre. It was 1.6, but then the back half of it was sold for a retaining pond, and Cloverdale was widened, and so there was an easement taken off the whole side of it. It was a concern for the fire department at that time that they would have no way to get in with a pumper truck to the houses in the back, because that's the way they were fighting fires, since we have no hydrants on the street. This property is going to be the first thing people see as they come into our subdivision. It's a really beautiful subdivision. We've been there for 24 years. And the problem I mainly have with it is the density, that his proposed plan has about a 10-foot buffer zone from the house adjacent to next door to him. And that 10 feet, you'll see, if I could show you the pictures, I wish I figured out how to do that, but lots of green area around it. Yes, we are on septic. Yes, we have our own wells. And we would love to have him there and be part of that community. But we just think the density is way too high, and that home in the front part of the property needs to be addressed, because it's going to be the first thing people see as they turn onto the street. So I would just ask you guys to please consider, and I do worry about the impact of a well that's going to service 4 homes versus a well that would service those single family homes that are existing there. I think that's all.
My name is David Reese. I also live at 12285 West Ginger Creek Drive. That's the property across the street from the property proposed. When Mr. Trong Ha met with the neighbors, he spoke glowingly about the character of our neighborhood, and that's why he wanted to develop here, is because of the character of the neighborhood. The character of the neighborhood is one large home per acre lot. So if he wanted to maintain that character, he would build a single home, 3,600 to 5,000 square feet on the acre property. That would be maintaining the existing character. At 4 homes per acre, that's a much higher density, and I think that density would be much better on the other side of Ginger Creek where such density is common. I'd also expressed great concern about allowing the well to go forward. My data point is 19 years ago, my family replaced our well pump. I was present as the pipes started coming out of the ground, and I just listened to the gentleman as the pipes came out, and he said, here's where the rust line begins on this pipe, so this is where the historical water level is. He says, now let's see when the pipe starts getting wet, and that'll tell us where the current water level is. The current water level was 16 feet lower than the historical water level. That's only one data point 19 years ago, but I do worry that if we put 4 homes on an acre, the pressure on the aquifer will be obviously 4 times if it was a single home on the acre. And that's my testimony.
Thank you. Okay, and I also see one hand raised online here, so we'll move to Mr. Ewing next. Mr. Ewing, please start with your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. I think you just will need, oh, you're unmuted already. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the board. Very, very briefly, I would just echo the things that have been said. We would love to have the applicant as our neighbor. He's a very, very nice man. I am too concerned with the density. Also, for your information, we've had just within 300-400 feet of that property. I've lived in the home that I live at 3784 North Farlight Place, which is in the cul-de-sac. We've had 3 that I'm aware of septic system failures where they've had to replace septic systems. I have had to lower my well because it ran dry several years ago. And Mr. Reese is exactly right. The water level has dropped precipitously, and that needs to be taken into consideration. I'm just not sure. The wells are wonderful, but the water depth has been dropping as a result of that. When we first moved here, it was at 11 feet. I put a basement in my home, and we had to raise my the elevation of my home to get the basement in so that it would not be in the high water table. So and now the last time it was checked, it was at 38 feet. So it's dropped approximately 27 feet since I've lived here. I too am concerned with the density and the ability to have a nice area to begin with. I also had asked the applicant if he would please submit something to show what he would do to improve the looks of the house that is existing on the property. And that's basically what I would like to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ewing. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this item tonight? Please virtually raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, then we'll move to rebuttal from the applicant. Please start again with your name, Mr. Ha, and you'll have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Chuang. Thank you, Cindy, David, and we appreciate your comment. Yes, I have meeting with our neighbor with all of us over time. As you can see, the existing condition of the site is an eyesore. With us coming in to build a beautiful homes, as you can see on lot number 1, 2, and 3, and make this site to have well landscaping with all the tree and green, will make the appearance of entering into Ginger Creek a lot better than it is right now. I do appreciate about the well situation. This is my only hope to get the well, but if the well were too difficult, I just want to add HDHD to allow it to cut into a road to connecting to the water. And that is my sincerely asking to be building our primary home here for our family and then providing a home for our relatives and people in our community as well. The zone for our property is zone R1B, which is allow up to almost 5 units per acre, and we're actually doing less than what it is required. So with the density, I think it met the requirement. With the surrounding neighbor around, as you can see, people on the north, the east side, they all have subdivision and they all on smaller lot. I do understand that people on the west side have been there a while on a big acre, but this is separately from that because it's zone R1B. And with our development, we'll make the site a lot better than it is right now. And it is our truly dream to build our home, to be part of the community. I lived here for 21 years and I see all of the development around us. It makes our community to be better. And with all the landscaping we have, it actually makes it a lot easier when you enter into Ginger Creek. And I would love to be part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll close the public portion of the hearing and the item is before the commission.
Madam Chairman.
Commissioner Gillespie.
So I don't have the two application numbers in front of me. So if you could please fill them in to my motion. So I move that we approve approve the PUD and recommend approval of the subdivision with all the terms and conditions of the staff report, including the requirement that the applicant hook up to the Suez water supply.
Great. This is for PUD 20-40 and SUB 20-54. Do we have a second?
Second.
Great. A second from Commissioner Moore. Discussion. Commissioner Gillespie.
I'll just be brief. Unusual for me, I know. I'm not worried about the density. I agree with the applicant. I agree with the city. However, I think we've heard several really sound public policy reasons not to go forward with a well on this property, including the nearby presence of multiple aged septic systems, the issues with the water table, the concerns that I think are valid with respect to the fire issues. The right thing to do here is to put that main the rest of the way down Cloverdale, connect it up so Mr. Ha's homes and eventually all of the homes up and down Cloverdale can hook up to city water and city sewer, and we can proceed with, rational planning and development in that part of our city.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Moore, and then Blanchard, and then I'm going to ask again because I didn't see who else. Start with Commissioner Moore.
Batnover, I'll go last. That's fine.
Okay, thanks, Batnover.
So I support the motion, of course, and basically I read it as a recommendation from the DEQ to connect to existing drinking water system, and with their expertise, I think that recommendation is worth following. In addition, the density is allowed in the zone outright. So per the zone that this property is in, it fits the density, including complying side yard setbacks. And yeah, otherwise, I agree with everything Commissioner Gillespie just said. And that's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Blanchard, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to say thank you to Mr. Ha and to David for really trying to put together a solution here to make this work. We do have a desperate need for housing in the Valley, and so I really appreciate that. I will be supporting the motion, however, including the connection up to Suez. I spent 3 years of my career working for the EPA as the guy who came in to clean up the mess when community water systems failed because they were not managed properly and there was not technical or financial capacity to maintain these systems. So I just see the potential for bad things happening here. Again, some of the things noted with the water table dropping, the potential for these septic systems to fail, and then burdening these homeowners that would be coming in here with maintaining this infrastructure that they don't understand, why they can't get fire service from the Boise Fire Department. Instead, they've got sprinklers and a water tank that they have to maintain. And this is just heaping potential problem on top of potential problem. So while I appreciate the effort to come up with a creative solution, yeah, this has to be connected to Suez water. There's just no way around it.
And Commissioner Bratnober?
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm having quite a bit of trouble with this one because it sounds like, as I saw from the applicant's slide deck, that DEQ and Water Resources had both said that was acceptable. So I'm having a little bit of difficulty reconciling those with some of the other comments I heard. But there's also the situation where the applicant is open to following the recommendations of the planning staff. And I didn't hear any deviation from that when I was asking those questions. Recognize the issues around the future of the well. That is the situation we all deal with. I know the prior owner of my house had to connect to city water because the well failed. That happens. But indeed, you know, at some point, the no-cut moratorium is going to end, and there will be developments that have even more intense density, which will absolutely require the installation of a connection to Suez water. So my perception is that will naturally resolve itself as time goes forward. The applicant is looking to improve the appearance of the neighborhood. It sounds like everybody likes them and would love to have them as a neighbor. So that's all nice, all well and good. And this development provides much needed housing to our community. So again, I have difficulty with a requirement which could potentially force the applicant to abandon development if ACHD stands firm. And we have no way of knowing what they're going to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Squires.
Commissioner Bratnober hit it on the nail for me. I have issues with ACHD's requirement. The only reason why I'm going to support the motion to connect to city water at this time is because the applicant has not gone through the appeal process or the application process with ACHD. I think it's a great project. I think it's going to definitely provide much needed housing in this valley. I think there are some great solutions to the water issue for 4 homes. That doesn't concern me. I work with individual wells all day long in some of the projects that I represent. IDWR said that there are adequate resources available, but because the applicant has not gone through that process with ACHD, I will support the motion. However, I will say, if we find ourselves in a situation with ACHD not willing to allow a cut into the road, I would encourage the applicant to come back to us. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Bratnober.
I think Commissioner Squires raises some great points, and I'm wondering if procedurally there is some way we could tie that to what we're moving here. In other words, that the applicant, in effect, the applicant pursues the appeal process, and then we come back, and if it's no, then we give approval to connect the well and the tanks. I don't like the idea of, since there is a path through this that actually aligns 100% with the city staff's recommendation, that we should not basically leave it to be an abandoned development as a result.
Okay,
Is something we can do procedurally. Deb?
We do have a motion on the table, so I'm going to ask us to hear that one through, and if it dies, or then we can talk about another motion.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
I'm in support of the motion as well. I think Commissioner Squires summed it up my thought process pretty thoroughly. Until the applicant really vets the no-cut moratorium with ACHD, I think that I agree with staff that this is written correctly. I don't see any issues with that. And personally, my thought is that we should deal with this application, let the applicant go before ACHD, and if he gets rejected, then I think he has to reevaluate how he proposes the development here. And that was my line of questioning to David earlier, that with this density, if we were to allow the wells and the tanks, are we comfortable proceeding with this as it's designed? And I don't think that staff really is. So if the applicant gets denied by ACHD on the no cut, then I think they have to reevaluate the number of houses they want to propose on this particular parcel and look at that density again. So that's my 2 cents, but I'm in support of the motion.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table to approve PUD 20-40 and recommend approval for SUB 20-54. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Squires,
Yay.
Blanchard,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Gillespie,
Aye.
Finfrock,
Aye.
Ratnober,
Nay.
Stead,
Aye.
Schaefer.
Aye.
Motion carries, 2 opposed.
Okay, so the next item that we are going to hear is item number 3. This is CUP 20-30.
Madam Chair, can the clerk please call that vote again?
Yeah, I thought it was only one opposed.
It was opposed.
Oh, yay. Okay. So motion carries, 1 opposed.
Madam Chair, I said nay. I'm sorry, I had a little tickle in my throat when I said it.
Oh,
Motion carries, 2 opposed.
Madam Chair, I believe that we got it for the record. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
Okay, so the next item we're going to hear is item number 3. This is CUP 20-36 for Zion Church at 2132 North Cole Road, a conditional use permit to operate a church in an existing building. And we are going to first hear from staff, please.
Okay. Madam Chair, members of the commission, the item before you is a conditional use permit for a religious institution on 0.35 acres in an R3D multifamily residential zone located at 2132 North Cole Road. The current use on site is an existing 9,008 square foot tenant office building and associated surface parking lot at the intersection of Cole Road and Poplar Street. Oop. Come on. There we go. The subject property is located within a developed multi-lot office subdivision. Site and landscaping improvements were installed with the original design review and building approvals in 1977. The applicant proposes no external changes to the building or site, therefore no design review application is required. The site is accessed from existing driveways on Cole Road near the southwestern corner of the subject parcel and from Poplar Street at the southeastern boundary of the complex. The development was designed with common access drives and individual site parking. The site currently has enough parking to accommodate 120 seats in the church. The applicant proposes a 200-seat maximum and is working to finalize a parking agreement to meet the requirement for that number as conditioned and as seen on this slide. The church use will not cause any negative impacts on the surrounding area as the use is compatible with the neighborhood. In addition to the mixture of office types, There's a concentration of community-oriented uses, including a school district administration building, a nursing home, a youth shelter, and another religious institution. Beyond that, the area transitions into single and multifamily neighborhoods, and Blueprint Boise encourages a mix of service and community uses near residential zones. The location is easily accessible by adjacent pedestrian infrastructure as well as by a nearby bus stop. In conclusion, the applicant's proposal complies with approval criteria for a conditional use permit. It is compatible with adjacent uses and the general neighborhood. As such, the planning team recommends approval of the application with conditions. The commission may deny, approve, or approve in part with additional conditions if desired. Thanks, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Rain. We'll next move to hear from the applicant. Mr. Arnstam, please start with your name and address, and we'll start with 10 minutes.
My name is Zach Arnstam. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
My address is 2567 North Chatterton Ave, Meridian, Idaho, 83646. Hello, did I miss anything?
It's your time to
No,
present if you'd like to.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. No, I just totally agree with Crystal. We're excited to occupy this building. We really appreciate you guys reviewing this. And we do have the parking agreement finalized with the neighboring building with Tingy Orthodontics. We have that signed and notarized and recorded with the courthouse. So we have plenty of parking. I think that was the only major concern. So more than enough parking for the building. So no, we're in agreement with everything. We're excited to occupy the building and just benefit the area.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Do we have anybody present representing the Winstead Park Neighborhood Association that would like to testify? If so, online, please virtually raise your hand. And seeing none, then we'll go to questions from the commission for staff or the applicant. And seeing none of those, and I don't have anybody sign up in advance, but I know that we have somebody here that would like to testify, so please come on up. Please start with your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. If there's anybody else online that would like to testify, please virtually raise your hand so that we have, so we can keep you queued up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the commission, and sorry for the misunderstanding earlier. My name is Barry Sherwood. I reside at 3702 North Trail Circle, Boise, Idaho, 83704. I also occupy the building behind the proposed Zion Church, and I just had to only oppose any conditional use based on giving up parking in my facility is all. And I'm just speaking on behalf of Embassy Inc., who is the owner of the building, and I'm under contract. And that's all. That's about it. I just had to make sure my new tenants had available parking 7 days a week is all.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then we'll move next to Mr. Stewart online. With the hand raised there, please start with your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Go ahead and, oh yeah, there you go. Mr. Stewart, did you have testimony to add to this item? We've unmuted Todd Stewart with the hand raised there. Do you have any testimony to add to this item?
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My name's Todd Stewart. I live on 5 Cypress Street. I'm scheduled to testify earlier, but I've heard so much testimony before about Boise, and the reason why I'm interrupting, kind of sort of speak, is because I've lived here my entire life. I'm 54 years old. I went to the school that this development the use of a pre-existing building is being repurposed, and that's good to me, because part of the career I chose was choosing to develop and not destroy. And I'll just leave it at that. So as a citizen, having gone to the school right across the street from where they're talking about, and probably one of the few residents, native residents that are in this meeting right now, that's it. Done.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Now is the time for rebuttal from the applicant. Mr. Arnstam, would you like to rebut? And you'll have up to 5 minutes. Don't forget to unmute when you're ready.
How about now?
Yes.
Yeah, Barry, who testified about the parking in the back, I've met him multiple times. He's a great guy. Yeah, we're not going to have any problems at all. There's plenty of parking just in our immediate parking lot, and the shared parking agreement we have, just ample parking. There's not going to be a problem at all with him being able to have his parking back there.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't interrupt you, did I?
No.
Okay, great. Okay, so then at this point, we'll close the public portion of the hearing, and the item is before the commission.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
I move that we approve CUP 20-36 for Zion Church with all the terms and conditions in the staff report.
Second.
Great, we have a second from Commissioner Squires. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
I think this is a great project, a reuse of an existing building, and a creative use of shared parking in off hours. So I completely support the project.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further discussion, will the clerk please call the vote?
Squires,
Aye.
Blanchard,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Gillespie,
Aye.
Vinfrock. Aye. Bratnober,
Aye.
Stead,
Aye.
Schaefer.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Great. Okay, our last item to hear tonight is item number 7. This is CR 20-14 for J. Fisher Companies at 313 South Orchard Street, which is a rezone of from an A1 to a PCD, and also PUD 20-37, a conditional use permit for planned mixed use development. And we'll please start with staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Before you is a request for the rezone of approximately 5 acres from an open lands A1 zoning to PCD, pedestrian commercial with design review. Conditional use permit for a planned mixed use development comprised of commercial space, 205 multifamily residential units, and a building height exception is also included. Property shown here in red is located on the southwest corner of the intersection of Franklin Road and Orchard Street on the central bench. As I'm sure you're all aware, the property was obtained by the city a year or so ago with the intent of developing a mixed-use project with a large component of affordable housing. After significant public outreach and an in-depth proposal selection process, the city did select J. Fisher Companies, who have submitted the applications we'll be going over this evening. Just as a side note, I'll be keeping my presentation limited in scope to the applications themselves, but we do have Leon Letson, the Grow Our Housing Program Manager, online as well, who would be able to answer any questions related to those aspects of the proposal. As I mentioned, the property is located at the intersection of Franklin and Orchard, which is designated as a community activity center in Blueprint, Boise, and it has a mixed-use land use designation and existing A1 zoning you typically see associated with a park or school site. Surrounding zoning includes C2D, LOD, R1C, and a small amount of R3D. Across Franklin Road to the north is a large commercial shopping development, zone C2D, and to the east across Orchard are numerous smaller retail, office, and personal services, zone C2D and LOD. Abutting the site is the relatively new 3-acre Franklin Park, and across Peg and Hilton Streets to the south and west by an established neighborhood of single-family detached homes zoned R1C. The planned mixed-use development is arranged as shown here, with 5 total buildings, 2 of which are fronting on Franklin and Orchard, with the others up along the boundary of the park. In total, the applicant is proposing 205 multifamily units ranging from 1 to 3 bedrooms in size, approximately 6,000 square feet of ground floor commercial and retail space, and 248 parking spaces to serve the development as a whole. Buffering the buildings from the neighboring single-family neighborhoods are 2 local streets in Franklin Park itself. Along Franklin and Orchard, both arterial roadways, the 2 buildings are proposed to be 4 stories, with a mix of commercial space and residential units on the first floor, and residential units comprising the entirety of the floors above. An improved bus stop is proposed along Orchard Street, shown at the bottom of your screen there. As detailed in the project report, due to the reduced width of the right-of-way along Franklin Road, in the proposed PC zone, a height exception is required for these buildings. From the perspective of the built environment, there really is no discernible difference between the 2 roads, and the planning team supports the requested height exception as it is both supported by the comprehensive plan and would allow about 50 or so more affordable housing units. Along the northern edge of Franklin Park are 2 4-story residential buildings, and to the east is a 2-story building with ground floor retail space, envisioned for a restaurant or cafe, and with a large open patio space fronting onto the park. The second floor is planned to be a clubhouse and fitness center for the residents of the development. Another rather unique amenity being proposed is the elevated plaza, shown here, which connects Franklin Road with the park and covers parking below. So this elevated plaza is proposed to be improved with landscaping, seating, and gathering areas. And this amenity provides a multitude of uses and in a lot of ways really epitomizes the design principles that the proposed PC zoning encompasses. So in this case, quite literally putting the pedestrian experience above that of the vehicle. Access is proposed to be taken from 2 full access drives, one on Hilton Street and one onto Orchard Street. Based on comments received from ACHD, the surrounding roadways and intersections should continue to operate at an acceptable level of service. The applicant has proposed a total of 248 parking spaces for the development. Once the parking incentives for commercial spaces in the PC zone and multifamily developments are accounted for, the proposal does meet the parking requirements of code. The planning team did receive 1 public comment in regards to the parking, which was included in your late correspondence packet. It expressed concern that there would not be enough parking on site for both the residential and commercial uses. And side note, if the commissioners would like to dive into those parking ratios, I do have that information handy and would be happy to go over it in more detail. In conclusion, as detailed in the project report and highlighted in this presentation, the planning team finds the applicant's proposal to be consistent with the standards of approval, including the Development Code, Blueprint Boise, and the requirements of all reviewing agencies and departments. As such, the planning team recommends approval of the applications with conditions. For PUDs, the commission is the decision-making body, and for the rezone, it is the recommending body to City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. We'll next hear from the applicant, and we'll start with 10 minutes. Mr. Wood, please start with your name and address.
Okay. Hi. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jake Wood. My address is 1380 East Harvard Avenue, Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm representing J. Fisher Companies, JF Capital, as the developer of this project. First, I'd like to say thanks to Kevin for that great presentation. I had one prepared, but I think he showed pretty much everything I had and touched on a lot of the larger points that I wanted to make. I think one thing that I would like to lead with is a little bit of history on how we got to this point today, where we are, and a little bit of history about our company. So this will be in our company, I counted them up, this is about our 20th or 21st multifamily development project, depending on how you count. This will be our 6th, that is highly concentrated affordable housing, where our present mix is about 80% affordable, 20% market rate in this project. And the thesis of our company is we are a build and own for the long term. We don't develop and then sell. We're not merchant developers who exit for fees. We own our properties for a minimum of 15 years when we build them. So we are making a long-term investment and commitment as the developers of this project. So we're highly incentivized to make the best quality, most functional, highest performing project that we can. So I just wanted to make sure everyone's aware of our company thesis. And I think that might be one thing that we found good simpatico with the selection committee when we went through the RFP process. You know, we came in and we made a proposal that was probably about 30% larger than this one, because you know, we've looked at all the numbers and we saw how desperately affordable housing is needed in Boise. We saw things like less than 1% vacancy rate for affordable housing in Ada County. And that just tells us that we're way behind and need to get started and build a lot of units as quickly as we can. So we came in, we had one that was, you know, it was a 6-story building, 5 stories of residential over structured parking. It was a big building, we had 290 something units in there. We were really aggressive. Well, we went through the process. We had our neighborhood outreach meetings, our community outreach meetings, and we really heard loud and clear that wasn't what the community wanted to see here. So we scaled it way back. We chose a different zoning to pursue, which was this PC zoning. And I think that this represents a lot closer to the scale and the intent of the master plan. You know, this is the neighborhood activity center that calls for this type of density with a mix of uses, very active, very pedestrian oriented. And so we tried to design something that in 360 degrees is constantly interactive with the ground floor, with the pedestrian experience. This project, you know, we don't want the park to be the amenity for us. We want to help be an amenity for the whole neighborhood. And so Kevin mentioned our desire to put a cafe in the park. We envision that as something that's a daytime use. People are going to the park, they're getting a cup of coffee, they're sitting on the patio, the kids are playing, very interactive. And then he mentioned the elevated plaza. For us, that does 2 things. It really gets people across this site. It gets people from Franklin Street into the park. It creates a sort of a nexus between the community and our project. We don't want to build something that has a bunch of fences and gates and really closes everyone out from our site. That wasn't our intent, and that wasn't the spirit here. So, you know, I think Kevin gave a great overview. I know everyone has some technical questions, and I'd like to leave plenty of time for everyone to have a chance to ask questions and talk through some things that might be concerning. So if everyone's okay with it, maybe we can just get right into the Q&A.
Thank you. We're first going to move to the neighborhood representation, and then we'll move on to questions. Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Randy Johnson. My address is 5502 West Anna Street, Boise 83705, and I represent the Central Bench Neighborhood Association. Thank you for the opportunity to allow us to present some perspective on CAR 20-0014 and PUD 20-0037 from the Central Bench neighborhood. As you consider the future of the corner of Franklin and Orchard, I ask you to take into account the history of this plot of land. For over 100 years, this corner has served as a center of our neighborhood. For a majority of those last 100 years, it sat our beloved Franklin School. And beyond this being a community education hub for us, it had many other uses as a regional activity center. And this site was a polling location, a dance hall, even a place to stretch our legs and even perhaps walk a dog. When the school was demolished, many worried that this was the end of the heart of our neighborhood. So from this loss, and after many years of being inactive, the Neighborhood Association was revitalized when the school was torn down. So far, we have spent countless of hours over the years and tons of energy on just this corner of Franklin and Orchard. We have fought hard to protect the identity of our little corner in Boise. Needless to say, we have a steady interest on this corner, which is why we took the step of creating a guide for the future development of not only this corner, but our entire neighborhood. And through a collaborative multi-year process with our neighbors and the great folks in the Energize department with the city, we created the Central Bench Neighborhood Plan. We also gathered comments from the neighborhood just within the last few weeks on this project specifically, which we can also provide to the commission. So From the plan, we created 4 areas of approach that we would consider for this project and any project. The first one being land use and development. The question is, does this project support a diversity of business, expand the mix of housing options, and create a walkable activity center? From the application, I note that there will be a designated commercial space, which will give much wanted room to expand Boise business opportunities. The multifamily residential units offer housing options that are also much needed for our neighborhood. With the proximity of Franklin Park, grocery stores, a main arterial road, and main mass transit route, we can also check off the box of a walkable activity center. Through a neighborhood character is the next lens that we try to look through. And does this development improve safety and strengthen the sense of neighborhood identity and heritage? This was one area where we heard some concern over the project, over the safety aspect of this project. There is a transportation safety element that I'll cover in my next point when I talk about connectivity. There is also a concern on increased crime that could be perceived with such a density. I'm not a safety professional, but there were enough comments that I want to definitely make sure that I bring this up and make sure that these elements are addressed in some way. On connectivity, does this improve bike pedestrian circulation within the neighborhood and the connections to neighborhood activity centers and other areas of Boise? A common theme of concern and opposition from neighbors is increased vehicle traffic. The main questions are if this intersection can handle the volume of vehicles. There's also a large concern over the lack of existing safe pedestrian crossings over Franklin Park or over Franklin Road up and down. And also the lack of bike routes and low stress bikeways. As I mentioned in the land use question, I also want to make sure that I do again point out that there is proximity to public space in Franklin Park. It's walkable to 2 grocery stores, main arterial roads, and the transit system all check off the box of connectivity as well. So there's both concerns and positives to this, as we see from the neighborhood. The last frame we use when we look at it is site building design. And the question is, does this support infill and does the new development match building and site design elements that integrate into complement existing neighborhood structure and character? The proposal does indeed work to support infill, and several components do match several of the neighborhood character, especially how it blends into Franklin Park, adding more space and amenities to this adjoining public space. Though there are questions and concerns over a 4-story building on the bench, and though we do support increased density and affordable housing, there are concerns over the amount and volume of density packed into this condensed space. There is no other building that I'm aware of on the bench that meet the height of this building, nor the density of this project outside of the downtown area. So that remains a major concern for the neighbors. So with that, outside the highlighted concerns over the volume of density, height of the building, the increased traffic, and perhaps public safety, it is the Central Bench Neighborhood Boards Association's opinion that this project, that it fits within the spirit of our neighborhood plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Randy. So now we'll move on to questions from the commission for staff, for the applicant, or for the neighborhood.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Blanchard.
A question for the applicant. Actually, I have a couple. Can you talk about the accessibility on the raised plaza?
Sure. The plaza will be ADA accessible through the building. The way that we're contemplating the design is that we have 2 lobbies on the ground floor that will be the elevator lobby that can go up to every level of the building. And I'm not sure how we're exactly going to do it to make sure that the residents keep their own security, but people will still have access out into the plaza. But we envision having at least one of the elevators available to go up and stop on the plaza level without having to use secure key card access to get up into the building. But we do have it arranged in a way that there's full ADA accessibility throughout the whole site.
And if I can follow on, Madam Chair.
Yes, please, Commissioner Blanchard.
But not for, there will be no accessibility for non-residents. So if I'm just walking down the street and I want to cut through over the plaza or enjoy the plaza, I don't have that ability.
You would have that ability and up into a certain point. And, you know, our initial idea is that we want it to be as open as possible. We also understand that residents, when they're leasing an apartment, this is their home. And so we want to give them every sense of security and safety without having any issues about who's coming and going. So we would like to keep the plaza, at least part or all. We envision the stairways and passageways through to the park to be completely open to the public. If we have to make one area somewhat sequestered, if people aren't feeling secure, then we'll do that. And like I mentioned before, access into the residential parts of the building will be key card secure access only. So, you know, safety is a big concern and we are thinking through those things. We don't have all of the final answers now, but the idea is to at least be able to walk through from Franklin Street into the park unencumbered for everyone, at least for the time being. That's our plan.
Madam Chair, I don't want to monopolize this, but I just have a couple of quick follow-ons.
Sure, go ahead, Commissioner Blanchard.
And then now the length, on the frontage on Franklin is what, about 600 feet?
I have a dimensioned site plan.
I mean, I guess I can kind of, I think it is an awfully, and me, the guy who's a core urbanist, it is an awfully urban scale for what's essentially a suburban area. I mean, I think if you're talking of a city block downtown is, 300 feet and you've got a 600-foot stretch there. You've got, it's just a real urban, and I think you did the best you could putting in the one break there between the two buildings. But so that said, I think you've done the best you could, but what are you doing to make this a little bit more human scale? So you're applying for zoning that is pedestrian commercial, and you're going to have people 5 to 6 feet tall walking, underneath a 40-foot building. And that's what are you doing to make it human scale?
Sure. So Kevin touched on that briefly. So I'll start with the big piece first and move down. So in order to diminish the scale of the building, we've done two things. The first floor is slightly taller, so you get about 14 feet on that floor, and it's a different material, and it juts out to create sort of a canopy above. So when you're walking, you notice the distinct materials between the ground floor, and then the upper sort of recedes. So that's kind of a style strategy that the architects use to help minimize that effect of just being sort of in that cavernous area. And then we have incorporated lots of variations in the facade of the building so that it's not just a monolithic wall that you're walking next to, this just solid surface the whole way. Then secondly, you mentioned we do have the one break, but we also have variations in uses along the way. So on the corner, we have a full glass storefront, retail, commercially designed space. Then we have a few sections of what are effectively sort of brownstone walkout residential units. And so not only is the material and the facade itself varied, but also the uses along the way are varied as well. So it serves the effect of breaking things up a little. Again, you kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, this is a big building that's going to take up most of the block face along Franklin and a good chunk of it on Orchard. So there's a lot of language in the code and then once we get into the design guidelines and the design review process, that really forces us to make decisions and do things that are already codified into this code that require us to think through that and create something that works well.
Madam Chair, just one more and then I'll close out.
Okay, Commissioner Blanchard.
And then finally, Jake, I assume that the businesses are going to, that are on the ground floor, you're going to have access from the Franklin side?
We will. And while we're on that subject, you know, Randy mentioned something about how important the site has been to the neighborhood. And when we first came in, that was something that we really took to heart. And so we've been working with a couple of local groups that do sort of, they're a nonprofit group that does economic development for local businesses. So you won't see like a T-Mobile cell phone store or something like that on this ground floor. You'll see, you know, they've proposed that we have in one section, a small space that's a local barber collective, maybe a local newsstand, and then some co-working space, and then local operators in the cafe on the park. So that's something that's important to us as well. We really want to create things that are community oriented in their use. So, you know, we've been thinking about that a lot. We do anticipate having access in a couple of the spaces from Franklin on street side, but also from the back of the building as well, because there's no on-street parking on Franklin, which was a little disappointing for us. We think that that's really great for thriving retail. People can pull up, park, and come and go. This is going to have to be a little bit more destination. Another reason why it's important to have that community engagement, because people know about it. They're committed to it. They're dedicated. This is my barber. This is where I go, and I know how to get there, and I know when to go, I know where to park, and all those things. So relying on drive-by traffic, pop-in traffic, this isn't the best location for that kind of commercial space. And so we've really tried to design something that's just more integrated into the community. But we do anticipate having walk-in from the front on Franklin as well as access from the back, because people will be using that parking there.
Great. Any additional questions from the commission?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
Just to touch on the note of density that the neighborhood association indicated, I know in the staff report, there's kind of a summary of the density the density kind of goals for the community activity centers. And it states that this activity center currently has 4.1 unit per acre density, but the desired is 12 to 20 units per acre. But the PC zone is allowed 43.5 units per acre, which is well above that kind of desired density envisioned. Could you kind of walk us through kind of where the 43 units per acre came from when 20 max is kind of what was envisioned? Is it kind of a combination of the uses allowed in that PC zone, or kind of envisioning some holes in the density?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Moore, yeah, you've kind of nailed it on that last section there. It's taking a look at the whole radius of the community activity center, which typically is about a half-mile radius. And so in that, you know, you're going to have vacant lots. You're going to have a mixture of you know, roadways, right-of-way, things like that. So that 12 to 20 is just taking into account just the comprehensive look at that whole area. So you really want to have some areas that are going to be a little bit more dense, and then some that are going to be a little bit less.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Brotnober.
Just a couple questions for the applicant. So of the 205 multifamily units, are they all planned to be affordable housing?
So in working with the city and I know I heard Leon was on here and he can probably elaborate on this, but one of the goals of the city is to create a diversity of housing. Affordable housing is a priority, but also kind of having a fair distribution is also a priority. So we settled on about 80-20. So 80% of the units will be restricted in their income and rent, and 20% will be available to anyone, and the rents we set at market rates.
So roughly about 160 or so would be called affordable housing.
That's fair to say.
Now, just for my own edification, I'm going to ask you an unfair question. So let me stipulate it appropriately. In today's market, okay, obviously this place will not be occupied in today's market. It will be occupied in whenever you guys are done building it. But in today's market, what does affordable housing in this case translate to, please, in rents?
Okay, if it's okay, I'll speak broadly on that. I do have the specific numbers, but it would take me a minute to locate them exactly. So the target demographic for this project is people whose annual income is 60% and below of area median income. And for this area, depending on household size, that roughly translates to $35,000 to $40,000 a year. And so you can imagine someone making $17 to $20 an hour, which that's a pretty good wage, but you can think of the types of people. Those are people that work at Home Depot. Those are people that might work at the local grocery store. That might be a first-year school teacher, or someone just out of college, or maybe a retiree who's on a fixed income. So it's a broad spectrum of people that fit that range. Now, when we look at what does that mean in terms of comparison to market rate, we look at a minimum delta of, we want to be at least 25% below the comparable market rate of an identical unit. And I know that we're well above 25%, but I don't want to say exactly, but that would be a good benchmark to think of. It's at least a 25% discount, and likely the way rents are going in Boise, that's probably growing.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Question for the applicant. Jacob, can I follow up on Commissioner Blanchard's questions regarding the building on Franklin? I personally don't have an issue really with 3 or 4 story tall buildings. I'm just wondering though, as we transition to the west end of that building, we got some very small homes to the west of the site. So I'm just wondering if you guys explored maybe stepping that building down a bit by like a story, for example, on that west end, just to help with that transition to those existing homes to the west.
We actually did explore that, and in an earlier version, we had that in there. We kind of reconfigured some things. We had to move some units around when we got a more detailed survey that showed the dimensions were slightly different than we thought they were in one of our earlier concepts. So we ended up sort of reclaiming that end of the building for to keep the amount of units without losing more units out of our count. Now, that's not to say that we couldn't reconfigure that. And we actually have our architect on with us tonight. And I don't know if it'd be appropriate to have him give some comments on that. And I don't know how much time everyone wants to dedicate to that. The short answer is we have studied that. We've studied a lot of different configurations. The way we've drawn it right now works very, very well. But again, nothing's set in stone at this point. So,
okay. No, I think that's good for now. I think that's just something to consider moving as it moves forward. I appreciate the input. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Blanchard.
A question for staff here. If I'm not mistaken, most of that property along Franklin that's now single family homes, and then there's the kind of that strange development right there between Philippi. I think most of that is R3, is it not?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Blanchard, you are correct. Yeah, right along Franklin Road there, that is zoned all R3D.
And I don't have it up in front of me, but is that Hilton Street? Is that the one that borders on the west? And what about those is all of Hilton Street, is that all R1?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Blanchard, yes. Once you get, I think, one parcel south from Franklin Road, it does become all R1C.
And is that anticipated to stay that way?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Blanchard, at this point in time, yes.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Okay, so at this point, we'll move to our sign-up sheet, which just has one name on it. We have Mr. Tim Ernst. And also in the meantime, if there's anybody else that would like to testify on this item tonight, please virtually raise your hand so we can start queuing people up. I'm not sure that I see Mr. Ernst. Okay, so we'll just move on then to some of the hands raised. I see Robert Schultz and then Todd Stewart. Mr. Schultz, please start with your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Mr. Schultz, you can unmute when you're ready.
I figured I had to unmute. So yes, I do want to speak in opposition to this as of right now. I'm sorry?
Please start with your name and address.
I do apologize. My name is Robert Schultz. I live at 317 South Laurel Street in Boise, one street over from the proposed development.
Go ahead.
Because I have 3 minutes, I'll go ahead and make it concise. My biggest, I guess, fear about this is there are a lot of properties on Hilton and on Peg that currently have very wonderful views of the hills. And because of that, their property values have gone up. The property values in the neighborhood all over have gone up because of those views. With a 4-story building, my biggest concern is that we're going to see a decrease in property value with those views now disappearing, as well as a significant effect to the property tax because of the perceived improvement of the neighborhood. On top of this, it's also going to drive a lot of extra unnecessary traffic and foot traffic. Personally, from an anecdotal point, I've lived here since 1992, and we have always been a very peaceful, quiet neighborhood. Franklin School worked out well because any chaos from the school happened when children were being picked up or dropped off. And aside from that, we were simply left to live our lives. This entire development, from all I can see, is that it's going to create an unnecessary amount of chaos that is going to generally bring down the entire quality of the surrounding neighborhood. I do not feel that it's going to add any benefit to it at all. Whereas something along the lines of a community center or something that would provide community enrichment rather than low-cost housing, which isn't really low-cost housing. I just feel that this particular building, if you were to bring it down to 2 stories, maybe it could be acceptable. Anything other than that, I'm simply in opposition of myself. And that's all I have for my speech, I guess. I don't know what you would call it.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll next move on to Todd Stewart. And again, if there's anybody else that would like to testify on this item tonight, please virtually raise your hand. Mr. Stewart, you'll have 3 minutes. Please start with your name and address once you unmute. Mr. Stewart, we can't hear you quite yet. It looks like you're still muted.
Now?
Yes, we got you. Please start with your name and address.
Okay, I'm sorry for the delay on that. Got bumped off by the network here. I'm going to go as quickly and as frankly as I can. I've spent a lot of time writing this out, so let me just read it because I got so many scrib notes that took place that I had to write down.
Please don't forget your name and address.
Oh, it's Todd Stewart, 5 Cypress Street, Boise, Idaho, 83705. Let it be on record. Thank you for the chance to testify. I'll do my best to make this as brief as and informative as possible. Starting concerns. First, restricted input from property owners not having a true open meeting. The use of virtual meetings limits the true voice of citizens. I propose that we delay any decisions on this development until a real open meeting per Idaho Code Title 74, Chapter 2, Section 74-203 and Section -204. Note, that section does not cover an in-person attendance restriction. Also, to make sure that they are properly notified, the homeowners, that means, I believe because this proposed development affects all of the property tax paying residents and not just the bench area where it's to be built, all of it. Based on the City of Boise Development Analyst document that only became available to me in October of 2020, the City of Boise Community Development Analysis is based on the 2010 Boise City Consensus. Population at that time is 200,005,671. This analysis has listed the following concerns as the main concerns: mental health, physical health, quality of life, intelligence. Why they included intelligence into that well is beyond me. I don't want to segregate intelligence. Excessive cut through traffic of residential roads, traffic cutting through private drives, excessive car parking on the streets due to shortages of parking space in existing apartment developments. Wow, that's in that document put out there by that organization. People living in RVs along the side of residential streets, creating traffic hazards. We've dealt with that for over a year now. Main goal, 50,000 units in 20 years. That is 2,500 units per year.
That's the end of the 3 minutes. Thank you for your input. So last call, do we have anybody else online that would like to testify? Please virtually raise your hand. And seeing none, then we'll move back to the applicant for a 5-minute rebuttal.
Thank you. Wow. Okay. Well, that was great comments from everyone. Thank you very much again. I did recognize a couple names from our neighborhood meeting, Ms. Schultz and Mr. Stewart. So thank you for coming again and voicing your concern. I would like to just say a couple things that I heard, and maybe I can give a little bit of insight and maybe kind of clarify our position on a couple things. At the very beginning, Mr. Johnson mentioned that there was concern within the neighborhood about increases in crime. We've never, in our experience, we've never had any issues in affordable housing or market rate housing for that matter. We've read a lot of studies. We've done a lot of research. I think the consensus is that there is a perception that high density apartments can create more crime, but it's actually false. The data do not prove that out. So, you know, it's hard to change people's perceptions, but when you actually study the data, you know, apartment buildings would be very safe and secure and create a sense of community. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Let's see. I understand the concerns about the density to the neighborhood. We never go in trying to impose our will. We always try and listen. We had a neighborhood meeting. We had 44 people sign up. It was very robust. We were on for several hours. Many people voiced support. Several people voiced concerns, and we really tried to do a lot of things to mitigate those. And we want to continue to do that. This is far from a finished process, and this will be still evolving as we kind of program the spaces. We put amenities in. We kind of select the operators for some of those community and commercial spaces. So, you know, keeping the community engaged is a goal of ours, and we hope that whatever the result is tonight, that we'll be able to move forward and hopefully keep that process open. I think that's it for me. I just wanted to say thanks again to everyone and once again express how excited we are, how happy we are, how pleased we've been with the process with everyone at the city level so far. And we really appreciate everyone's input and feedback. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wood. So now the item is before the commission.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Bratnober.
I move that we recommend to the City Council approval of CAR 20-14 and PUD 20-37 with the terms and conditions as specified in the staff report.
Second.
Great. So we have a motion, a second from Commissioner Schaefer. The motion is to recommend approval for CAR 20-14 and to approve PUD 20-37. Is there discussion?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Bratnober.
First of all, thank you for correcting that on the PUD. I think this looks like a great setup. I'm very encouraged by the fact that we're going to be providing so many affordable units so that people who are working a full-time job here in Boise can live here in Boise. I think that's incredibly important in this time. I also appreciate your comments, Mr. Wood, about the misperception of crime. We run into this a lot when we're debating affordable housing. That rumor, that misconception hits us in the face over and over again and has become a barrier in some cases to providing affordable housing. So kudos to you guys. Build it up and let's put some people in it. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
I'll be brief as well. Obviously, I'm in support of the motion. I strongly support the project. I think it's a great project. You guys have done an excellent job, I think, with the layout. The PC zone is absolutely appropriate for the rezone. The proximity to the park and services is a total win. I think it's a great opportunity to see this part of the city start to transition to a little bit more of an urban condition and get away from some of that large parking lot suburban development that you see, for example, across the street. And that's historically what's been in the area, but this is a great step forward to get a bit more of an urban feel and to provide the much needed affordable housing here in the city. So again, strongly support the project. Well done. I look forward to seeing it progress.
Okay. I guess I will just add that I also greatly supporting the project. I love to see a much needed large project like this close to jobs, shops, transit, the park. I loved the diversity of the housing that you're going to do, the percentage breakup. I think it's overall a great project and I look forward to it going in. So with that, again, we have a motion on the table to recommend approval for CAR 20-14 and to approve PUD 20-37. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Squires.
Aye.
Blanchard.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Gillespie.
Aye.
Vinfrock.
Aye.
Bratnober.
Aye.
Zed.
Aye.
Schaefer.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And that adjourns our meeting. Have a great night.
Good night,
Good night,
folks.
everybody.